Bizarre Brain Comics. Oh. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host, and this is where I usually like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. And this time we're not going to be looking at comic books, but books about comics and the history of comics. If you've watched my videos for any length of time, you probably picked up that, well, first of all, I have an eclectic taste in comics. Yes, comics are more than superheroes. And I know a lot of people will be surprised by that. And I'm passionate and I love the art and medium for storytelling and the history of that medium, from through comic strips, through the comic books and graphic novels, all the way back to the origins of cartooning and the concept of visual storytelling, back to prehistoric times. So now I'm going to show you several books about the history, different aspects of the history of comics. I do have some others, but these are our few. I have others. These were all handy, and I didn't want to try to dig them all out. So, hang on to your hats, because here we go. There, and our first book is this one, Men of Tomorrow, Geeks, Gangsters, and the Birth of the Comic Book by Gerard Jones. And this is from 2004. And yeah, this is Gerard Jones, the comic book writer. Or he used to be a comic book writer. He has since gone on to write, be a comic historian, and has written some other books. And this book is, he also has started various writing workshops for adults and young people. Now, this book is almost exclusively text. Has a, where is it? Has a photo section here. Has photos of some of the principals involved, as well as some of the early artwork and influences, etc. And some nice stuff. So this is about, of course, about the origins of the comic book, but it's also, now I haven't finished reading it. I started it reading it several years ago, and only got partway through it, and I'm going to have to start it all over again so I can read the whole thing, because it's really interesting. But it's as much about the people behind it, behind the creation and growth of the comic book as an industry and a storytelling medium. And they're not all nice people, I tell you. It's about their influences, about their lives, their histories, etc. Some of them are involved with organized crime and stuff like that. That's why it says geeks, gangsters, etc. That's an interesting one. Then we have The Penguin Book of Comics by George Perry and Alan Aldridge. I think I've shown this in context with some other stuff, or at least have mentioned it. It's a great cover design. This is from 1971, of course, Penguin. And this is, so, we're talking, there's over 50 more years of history after this was written, after this is published. But this is, you know, this goes back, like I said, into the history of it. Early influences, early comic strips, and of course it is, the writers are English or British, and is focuses a lot more on the British stuff. But you can see some of the nice, of course, here we got some good old Marvel. There's the Spirit, Supermax. Oh, that's kind of cute. You know, all the humor, a lot of text. Oh, Spidey with John Romita. You can see, Modesty Blaze. Even has a color section. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. British stuff, Thunderbirds. You know, all kinds of good stuff. It's been ages since I've read this book. And here is Comics, A History of Comics, comic books in America, also from '71, by, the author's names are approved by Kids for Earth. I've done one on Madpeck, and all the graphics were done by the Madpeck, and Les Daniels. I talked about him before too. Les Daniels. And this is more America-centric. Here we go. But still has a lot of the classic stuff. Crime Does Not Pay. And it has, you know, a section here, a lot of text, a lot of section just showing some pages. But it even has some complete stories of a few shorter stories. Fox and Crow. See, the EC Revolution. Yeah, a whole chapter on EC, and it does reprint some EC stories. Horror, science fiction, and humor. Adventure. And some of the classic stuff. And these books are great resources because I mention the history and the backgrounds of the artists and writers at times, and I get most of that from online sources. These books are also great resources for that. And Donald Duck. Here's an EC story, horror story, and these are all some really great stuff. Of course, you can see this is a very rough copy. I had to tape the dust jacket back together, but it's just a wonder that it still has a dust jacket. And here we have Sex in the Comics by Maurice Horn from 1985. Getting a little dry there. And of course, this isn't about graphic sex. It's about presentations of sex and sexuality in comics, as well as some of the more adult material. It does talk about, satirical sex. It has crumb in here. It has underground stuff. The American way of sex, sex and the single girl, you know, the American way of sex. And it shows snippets of how sex and sexuality is depicted. That's a real nice drawing. Of course, Lady in her, and how looser they were able to be at times in the earlier days. And it even has a section, Modesty Blaze, sex and violence. Wally Wood, Wallace Wood, and Modesty Blaze again. There's a lot of sexy stuff. Wally Wood did a lot of sexy stuff. Black Fury, and how stuff. This was mainstream comics in the 40s, and it's pretty sexy. Vampirella. Yeah, you don't get sexier than that. Crumb. Our superheroes undersexed. Clark and Lois and various other things. Even I hear you know, this is stuff goes from mainstream to underground, comic strips to comic books and graphic novels. And here we go. Even where did I find that? See that? Even shows here. I won't show too much of that or too much of that. Little Annie Fanny, you know, stuff from Playboy magazine, European stuff, and it even talks about the Tijuana Bibles, which I plan on doing an episode all about Tijuana Bibles. And Sex and Color, from Flash Gordon here, Bondage, BDSM, and here with Camelot 3000. And this is from the mid-'80s. This would have been about the same time this book was published. Camelot 3000 from DC, and how it was very, very sexy. And sexual depictions. Richard Corbin, you know, various other, you know, some more Richard Corbin, a whole variety of stuff. So it's not all about, I don't want to show too much of that, sexuality, not just sex. Then we have, this is one that I did a whole episode on once, so be brief on it. This is Comics of the American West by Maurice Horn, who wrote the other one. This is from 1978, and it's just about Western, of course, Western comics, comic books, comic strips of various natures, humor, adventure, historical, the whole kit and caboodle. Good stuff. And then here is another one that I've done a whole episode on, A Century of Women Cartoonists by Trina Robbins, who we just lost just a few months ago, who is an accomplished cartoonist in her own right, starting in the undergrounds to doing stuff self-published and mainstream, and she was a big fan of paper dolls. But it's again, this shows some really lovely, beautiful stuff. How women were treated, and as creators as well as characters in the show. There's great Brenda Starr. Lots of Brenda Starr there. Modern romance, and you know, to romance comics, you know, the whole kit and caboodle. You name it. The women who were creators in their own right. Then we have The Great American Comic Strip by Judith O'Sullivan, 100 Years of Cartoon Art. And this is from 1990. And this is all about the origins of the comic strip, and the early strips, the creators, etc. And how, and while it focuses on, and this is, you know, from around the world, not just, well, it's, of course it's American, but some of the foreign stuff came into the American sphere. And it goes on to then talk a little bit about how the developed into the comic books were developed from that. Because remember, the first comic books were reprints of comic strips, and some great samples, great information there. Then we have this one that doesn't have the dust jacket and is in very rough shape. It was in very rough shape when I first got it. This is The Great Comic Book Heroes by Jules Pfeiffer. I've used this as a resource several times. I've broken into it and done breakdowns of some of the stories in here. Now this is from, oh, I've forgotten what year. I'm thinking, I can't find it. I think it's 66, 68, something like that. Anyway, and it's got a lot of text, but when it also has complete comic stories in it, broken up with text pieces. From through the Golden Age, the origins of many of the characters that we know and love today, and some of the lesser known characters as well. Now I have seen I don't know how many times it's been reproduced, but I have seen a more recent version of this book that was just the text without the comic book sections in it. Just all the text by Jules Feiffer. Then we have, try to get some of the glare off of that. Then we have Marvel Chronicle. This is from DK Publishing. It's probably has no single author, but is a team of writers producing this one. Because DK do a lot of things of an historical nature. So it came in this fine box right here. You can see that cover illustration. Oh, it's a big, heavy book. You could knock somebody's head off with this. And look, die cut. See if you can see that. Front cover die cut is the shape of an M for Marvel. And it's a year-by-year chronology. A forward by Stan Lee, afterward by Joe Quesada, Marvel Chronicle. And it is just that. It has the forward, and then it starts at the very beginning and just shows characters and events and samples of some of the stuff year by year throughout the life of the publishing company that came to be known as Marvel. I don't know if I mentioned the year. This was from 2008. And is a fine, interesting resource. Even if you're at all interested in. And I think they have a DC version of this, but I'm not positive. I don't have it. If they do. She-Hulk. 82. How far do they go before the index? 2007 goes, so it went right up to the year before this book was published. And it has a nice sample of a lot of great artists and characters. And events, and you name it. So that's all I've got to share with you this time. With a bunch of books about the history of comic books. Ooh, comic strips. And I do want to thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe. You have anyone who are interested in comic strips or comic books, the history of, please share this with them. They might be interested in finding some of this material. And it is some very interesting reading, because there is a history, and histories of comics are now in subjects in colleges and universities, areas of higher learning and stuff. So this would be a great background for that if someone wants to pursue that later or at all. It doesn't matter. Have you read any of these books or are aware of any of these books? Because there are many others, and I have others too. So let me know what you think of these books in the comments down below. And remember, comics are art.